Reading with your kids.
Hey, so great to see you. Come on in. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We are coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. Please be sure to subscribe to the show on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, wherever you find your podcasts. Our guest today is Megan Chadwick. She is joining us from the Healing Library, letting us know about a really important new resource that they are making available for families going through the COVID-19 crisis. Before we invite Megan in, I want to let you know that on May 19th, we are debuting a special series of episodes here on the podcast that we are calling Solve It. I am creating these episodes with our friend, our Dean of all things STEM and STEAM, Jennifer Swanson. We are so excited. These episodes are being produced specifically for you to listen to the shows with your kids. Your kids are going to love it because Solve It gives kids and families a peek into the real world of scientists, engineers, and experts, and astronauts as they solve problems in their jobs using curiosity, critical thinking, and creativity. Did I say we're speaking to astronauts? Astronauts, plural! You don't want to miss it. It's a lot of fun. I'm having such a great time. You and your kids are going to love it too. Joining us right now from Signal Mountain in Tennessee. It just sounds so pretty. I have to get down there sometime. We're welcoming back a guest. She was on not too long ago, Megan Chadwick. She is the founder, the driving force behind the Healing Library. And a few months ago, we heard about the wonderful things that are happening at the Healing Library. They create these kits for families to help them deal with some really difficult situations in life. We're right now in the middle of the most difficult situation human beings have faced together as a race. And Megan has come back. She has a brand new resource in the Healing Library. But first, I want to welcome back Megan Chadwick. Megan, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much, Jed. A little stir crazy, like I'm sure everybody is. And we had a rainy day today, so it's a little bit extra. But I'm so happy to be talking to you again, even if it is under such trying circumstances.
Yeah. And we should take our hats off to Megan and everybody else in her situation who has a 4-year-old, is it?
Oh, one.
A one? I have to take off my hat, my shirt, my shoes. Yes, all the parents out there, especially parents with young kids and parents with teenagers, it is tough. And we really want to support you and thank you for what you're doing with your kids and caring about them. And that's kind of what Megan's here to talk about, because she's created some resources for parents. And even though we hope that we're close to the end of the lockdown, we're far from the end of dealing with COVID-19. We're far from the end of our kids having to deal with it. So I've been talking too much. Megan, tell us about this new resource.
So this was a bit of a challenge for me, and working with the team, we had a couple of librarians because that's primarily who we work with, but started with the librarians, and then we had a couple of moms reach out and say, are you going to make something for us? What are you working on? This is right up your alley. And I sort of had been struggling with how to do that, because what we create are kits that are intended for libraries to lend to families, and then return. And of course, we're in a situation right now where many of our libraries are closed. Many of our libraries, if they are open, aren't accepting materials back. And so how do we create something that sort of surpasses that, right? So it took me a little while to figure out how to create a kit that was intended for people to keep, but also still involved our libraries, because they are critical sources of information, especially during trying times like these. So what we've come up with is a kit that is intended for libraries to either download and assemble kits that they could then pass out and distribute to families safely. And families don't have to worry about, the guidelines we've put forth. But the other option is that families can simply download this from the website, skip the first 10 pages, which are all talking to libraries about how to do this and how to do this safely, and then jump right into the family materials. And we recognized also, last time I was on, we talked a lot about diversity and how we need to be respectful of, racial and ethical diversity, neurodiversity, financial diversity, physical diversity, and on and on. And so that was the other piece. How do we create a kit that basically anybody could access regardless of their living situation, regardless of the size of their family or the type of their family, and still benefit from? And I really think it took a lot longer to write, to be very careful and tender. But I think what we came up with was a really wonderful opportunity for families to access activities and books still, either through ebook formats or video formats that have been recorded by publishers and placed on YouTube, or there are actually some really fabulous free downloadable PDF books that have been created and are out there for families right now. And so we put all of that together and, focused on our bibliotherapy. Bonnie Thomas joined me again, and she was generous enough to donate her time. Actually, we all did this time. So we all banded together and put this together for free. So Bonnie took a critical eye. She's our licensed clinical social worker who specializes in working with youth and focusing on art and play-based therapies. She took a look at all of the language, all of the activities, and fine-tooth comb, made sure that everything was just as it should be. And I really am proud of what we've come up with.
That is, you make a really good point in that, I've seen a lot of people and a lot of posts on social media saying we're all in this together. And yeah, but we're not experiencing this in the same way. Earlier on, I was talking to you about, the fact that you have a 1-year-old, and that is very different than what my wife and I are experiencing as, people who have grown kids. And we miss our kids. We wish we were there to be able to wrap our arms around our adult kids. That's not possible. But that's a whole different thing than dealing with a 1-year-old. And we're blessed that my wife is a teacher, and I'm a podcaster. I'm able to work from home, so we have that going for us. We haven't lost our job. We're not a family who are living in the shadows, who not only don't have a job and lost their job, but they're not entitled to the government supports. There's a whole lot of families out there who have nothing right now.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we're in this together, but we're all experiencing it in very, very different ways. And I think that's really important for us to understand.
Yeah. And actually, just to speak to that point, when we were putting the activities together, especially the activities, because you think of art and play-based therapy activities, you think of gear, right? So I'm going to need markers and glitter and special glue and big paper and fancy scissors that do those crazy edges on the papers. And, this one needs tissue paper, not construction paper. And really, we were able to find ways to put these things together. There's one section just on collaging, and it has 4 different ways to approach the art form of collage for different mental health benefits. Oh, wow. And we remind people that you don't even need scissors. You don't even need paper to do this. You don't need glue. One of the types of collages we have are called, I can scroll down and look it up. It's like temporary collage or something. But the basic idea is that some art should be created that shouldn't be permanent. So especially, I think I mentioned last time I was on, parents and just society in general, our American society, we have a tendency to really want to gloss over anger and not allow children to access anger. And through accessing it, if you have some healthy goals in mind and some constructive goals in mind, you can really do children such a big favor in developing a toolkit that they can use to understand, here's why I'm angry. Here's what I know will work to make me less angry. And so in this temporary collage, for example, it's a fabulous way to access your anger, to express your anger, and then literally to let it go. Because it's not something you're supposed to keep. And, we mentioned, sure, if you've got construction paper or tissue paper, that's fine, but think about your junk mail. think about old cereal boxes or food containers. Think about outdoor ephemera, like sticks and pebbles and blades of grass and old leaves, and just things that you don't think are important to your family that you can repurpose and turn into something meaningful.
So wise. And that whole point about helping kids access anger and express it in a safe and a healthy way, I'm imagining that there are literally millions of kids here that are doing their best because they understand it's tough. They understand that their parents are going through some hard times and there are little kids in the family and they want to keep it together. And so they're pushing down that anger and they're not allowing themselves to express that anger because they don't want to add to the situation. And this would be a really healthy way for them to, because, hey, we appreciate that, but it's okay for you to be angry. I don't blame you. I'm pretty angry at this myself, and let's deal with it and get rid of it and do it in a healthy way. Yeah.
One of the things that we changed this time, so typically we have a recommended set of books, and every book comes with a discussion guide that parents, we recommend anytime you're doing this, that you read the book ahead of time, read the discussion observation guides ahead of time, because it may trigger something in you aren't expecting. However, this time with libraries being closed and not being able to supply these books to people, we had a bigger challenge of we don't know exactly what people are going to be reading. So instead, we did make book recommendations, but we broke them into 3 parts. So the first is a list of some books that deal with understanding what germs do, how they operate, and talk about being sick. The second set of books has to do with emotions. And the third set of books has to do more with strategies. So mindfulness, yoga, breathing activities, staying present, that kind of thing. And when we had to write up the book discussion guide this time, I kind of realized that since it can't be specific to on page 24, Erica gets angry and she tells Shantae that she hates her. And so I can't have that page, laid out for everybody. Instead, we had general observation and discussion prompts. And when we discussed the books about emotion, really you can pluck from the observation or the discussion anything that you want and shape it to fit your family. But we specifically wrote sections that allow you to discuss with your child anxiety, worry, or fear, then sadness, then jealousy, and then anger. And I figured things like happiness or expectation, those are easier for people to talk about with kids, especially. But how if you have an anxious child and you're anxious yourself, how do you navigate that conversation and in an open-ended way? You mentioned teenagers before, and typically our materials are written for families that have younger school-age children. And that's the case for this as well. But I was reading so much information, as I'm sure a lot of us out there that are parents are, so much information. And some of the greatest stuff I read about teenagers was allowing space for them to talk. And it doesn't even have to be question-led. Just, what did you hear today? Because they've got their own news feeds and sources, and they hear you talking to other adults. So allowing room for them to talk. So I'll digress a little bit from my point and just touch on the teenagers, because these 3 things were really fabulous. So one was allowing room for them to talk. And if they aren't talking to you, trying the strategy of asking, what do your friends think about that? Or what have your friends been saying about that? Because if they're not talking about themselves, it can be easier for them to sort of start into the conversation. And then finally, allowing them to say whatever. Again, they have a right to be angry. They have a right to be depressed or anxious about this, but correcting any misinformation you hear. Because that's so scary. Yeah. And they are hearing misinformation. We're hearing misinformation. We're hearing contradictory information.
we've heard in just a couple of months, we heard that the coronavirus is not something that can be spread person to person. We heard that wearing masks is, it's no big deal. We've heard that animal, don't worry about it. Your animal, your pet can't get it. And now we're hearing completely different information. So yeah, it's important for us to talk to our kids about that. I also think it's a great time for parents with kids who are teenagers to talk about how they discern what is accurate information and how to evaluate the information that they're getting. Where did you hear this from? Is it a reputable source?
And a lot of our libraries have some really fabulous programming and resources that they've created for families. Mm-hmm. To get to the bottom of what's good information that's out there and what's, got an ulterior motive. Mm-hmm. So I would say if that's been an issue for your family, by all means, contact your local library, or even if you're able to do a Google search library programs, fake news. Mm-hmm. And that enough will allow you to get to the bottom of how to even start searching for these things, and beyond Snopes, for example. Mm-hmm. And so speaking of contacting your local libraries, a lot of them, even though their doors are shuttered at the moment, they have staff that are available and are doing things, and you can still email them and get responses and set up phone calls. So they can still help you. And I would just say too that you were talking about folks. My husband has been really lucky that he's been able to work remotely as well. And so he has kept his job. But for folks that are without employment right now, or folks that were struggling even beforehand, if you don't have the opportunity to download and print this, mm-hmm. I would say contact your library and find out if they will do it for you.
Wow. Libraries are such a valuable part of our communities and overlooked resource in a lot of communities. They're vital. They're vital to so many people who are on, in those margins who don't have any kind of resources, who can't have an Amazon account and can't be Prime members and have things delivered overnight. Some places, libraries are the only place to get information, to get books, to get something printed. So we have to support. Just when this is over, we have to support our libraries. It's so vital. And one of the things, too, that's neat about our library system, for the most part, if you're living in Signal Mountain, Tennessee, and, your local library doesn't have something that you're looking for, the Signal Mountain Library can usually reach out to another library, and you also have ways to reach out to other libraries all around the country and get some help.
Yeah, actually, so there's a fabulous, it's called Interlibrary Loans, mm-hmm. and actually, we were just talking about this, not to get political, but because I've been so focused on this, I haven't really looked into a lot of what's going on with the Save USPS movement, the United States Postal Service, okay. But one of the only reasons that libraries are able to offer that interlibrary loan service where we can get a book from another library for you and have it delivered to our library so that you can use it is because there's something called Media Rate, which is a low-cost shipping option for people that are shipping books. Mm-hmm. And so I hadn't even, like I said, I've been so sort of tunnel vision on this project that once I emerged, it might have even been this afternoon, a librarian I follow somewhere said something about without Media Rate and USPS, your libraries wouldn't, we're interconnected that way, and we couldn't offer as much as we do without them.
So we have to support that too.
Yeah.
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 Well, I absolutely, being an author of books, I've used the Media Rate, and it makes a big difference.
Yeah, it's a lifesaver.
Yeah. What if there's a parent out there who's listening to this and they say, "Yeah, I can access and I can download this, I can print this, but man, I'm not a counselor. This bibliotherapy thing, that scares me. I'm not qualified to do that." What do you say to that parent?
I say you're probably already doing a really good job. First of all, the fact that you're tuned in or that you found this through your own research somehow and trying to help your kids, thank you for taking such a caring hand in their development and in raising them, especially right now. But beyond that, that's part of the beauty of working with Bonnie, our licensed clinical social worker. We lay out clearly in the beginning of these kits, there's a little letter to families, and it's one page, and it just sort of tells you, here's what you've got in your hands. Here's how to begin approaching this. And we lay out that this isn't going to take the place of a therapist or a counselor for your family. This isn't going to fix whatever's going on in your world, but it is going to start giving you guys the tools you need to heal as a family. And I'm scrolling through it. So it just officially launched a couple hours ago, and we've already had some downloads, which is great. But there's one passage that I wrote, and I was like, oh, I wonder if this is too fluffy. And Bonnie's so fabulous because she works with kids and families all the time, but she's also a mother. And so she read it and gave me the thumbs up. And so I'm just going to read this to your listeners. So it says, we aren't suggesting that everything in this kit needs to be done. Rather, you should review the information and determine what will work best for your family. It is an extraordinary time we are living in. You don't have to be perfect to care for your kids during these difficult circumstances. You just have to be you. Extra hugs, caring language, and allowing yourself to slow down and breathe are a great place to start. You've got this. We believe in you. And we do.
Yeah.
We really do.
Yeah. I love that message that you give to parents. I think it's so important for them to understand that the most important thing is loving them and helping them feel loved and letting them know that they're going to be safe. And certainly any parent that's taking the time to listen to this, any parent that's taking the time and the initiative to go to the Healing Library to download this information, that's such a huge head start, and that's the first step. And if you're taking that first step, you're on the right track, and you and your kids are going to get through this.
Yeah, I think it's a lot like, you read any book, if you get one or two ideas out of it, or if you go to a conference and you go to one session, or if you watch a TED Talk and you get one idea that really sticks and works for your family, that's great. The beautiful thing about this is it's a printed resource, so you can continue to return to it. And if one thing worked for you, you can always go back and take another look and see if there's a next sort of, I think of it like choose your adventure, right? Yeah. Like, oh, this sounds like it would be a good next place for us to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we also, because it's crazy times and because so many people are being really, really generous with their offerings, we don't typically put things in that are like, the more section with links of places you can go, but right now that's sort of the world we're living in. And so we have links to activities that you can do that are virtually based. So visiting the Cincinnati Zoo, and I don't know if your fans remember Fiona the hippo when she was born, but you can like tune in and watch Fiona. And the Tennessee Aquarium just down the mountain from us has been doing some fabulous online programming and offering some of their IMAX movies for free. And so people have really been generous. And so we have more links to that kind of thing than we normally would. And we, again, tried to reach out to everybody. And so we have things about the art of dance in here that we wouldn't have necessarily been able to include before. Opera and free music and a really great resource. I feel like I'm going on a million miles an hour here.
Go.
But one of my favorite things that's come out of all this, and probably because I'm a kids book person, is that Mo Willems is the Kennedy Center for the Arts artist in residence. And so he's actually doing daily doodles with Mo during lunch, where you can go to their YouTube page, and for your parents that may feel like, I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know how to navigate this, it's been weeks and I still don't know what to say, watch the first 10 minutes, 15 minutes of his very first one, and you'll see a guy that's just killing it because he's talking to kids about, this is scary. I'm scared too. But here's what I can do about it. And just his tone is fabulous. If you're looking for a role model, he's mine.
All right. All right. And I love what you said. I make the same point in a different way about, this is one resource. And if you can get one thing out of this resource for your family, that's great. Kids all the time, they come up to me and they go, how do you learn how to do magic? I go to the library, get a magic book out. Yeah, but I got a magic book and I was only able to do one trick. I'm like, dude, that's cool. I have 200 magic books here. I can do like 1 or 2 tricks from each one of those books. I can't do all of them. I can't do most of them, but I got 200. So that's like 400 tricks I can do. And that really is the thing. It's like, one resource isn't going to give you everything, but if one resource can give you one thing, and then you find another resource that can give you something else, and you just add it to your toolkit, and this is, we're going to be dealing with this for a long time. And so this kit that you've created for families around COVID-19 is going to be important to families for a long time.
And we're going to, as things change so quickly with what we're facing right now that I can't promise every time something changes, I will change the kit. But I do have, the kits are dated and the download is dated so that you have the date of when we created this on your hands. So as things change, the most recent version will always be available on the free downloads of our website. So you can always be sure that if you click that one, it's the most recent version.
Awesome. Well, let everybody know exactly the link that they should go to get this really valuable resource.
Sure. So our website is The Healing Library US, as in United States, thehealinglibraryus.com. And once you're at our website, there are very few buttons. You just click free downloads, and it's literally at the top of the list right now because I'm sure it's at the top of everybody's lists right now.
Absolutely. Well, we want to encourage everybody, and I mean this, I want to encourage everybody to visit thehealinglibraryus.com. Check this out. If it's not something, if you're like me and my wife and, you don't have kids in the house right now, this is a great resource that you can share with the people in your lives that do have young children. And I think it would be a wonderful gift for them because as many people listen to the show as they do, not everybody listens to the show. So we need to share this information with each other. So check that out. Megan, I am so thankful that you created this. I'm really sending you a virtual, socially distant hug for doing this.
Virtual high five.
And it's real important. So thank you so much for you and your team for creating this for families.
And if any of your folks have any questions too, you can reach out directly to me at thehealinglibraryus@gmail.com.
We've had such an enlightening conversation with the driving force behind the Healing Library, Megan Chadwick. Megan, thanks so much for being back on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Please be sure to join us for the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Leah Fisher. She'll be talking to us about the cryptid duology. It's a great conversation you don't want to miss. I want to thank the folks who made today's special episode so very special. Of course, we want to thank our guest, Megan Chadwick. Please be sure to check out thehealinglibraryus.com and download this great new resource that'll help families talk about and address what's going on here in the COVID-19 crisis. I also want to thank the incredible team that helps me here at the studio. I want to thank my amazing producer, Fatima Khan. I want to thank my awesome author, Ambassador Peggy Cotto. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all of the support that she's given me. I am so thankful that she hasn't had enough of me being cooped up with me and quarantined with me for the last month and a half. I want to thank Augie the doggy for having my back here in the studio. But most of all, I want to thank you. Thank you. As Megan said during the show, thank you so much for loving your kids. Thank you so much for caring so much about your kids that you would listen to a show like this because you want to get the great books and great information to help make your kids' life as happy and as full as possible. And most of all, thank you so much for taking the time to make the world a better place. And you do that every time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.